Now, a second ago, if you were paying attention, I made a distinction between strings and numbers. So let's take a look at what that means. What are strings versus what are numbers? So number, let's see, I'm going to call this small number equals 3. Big number equals 45. And bigger number equals small number plus big. Notice how as soon as I type big, it allows me to select this, so I can actually click on that. Bigger number. So bigger number equals small number plus bigger number. Okay, and now if I say print bigger number, let's see what happens. So it's going to print 48. So it thinks of these things as numbers. Okay, but what if I did this? Small number equals, and now notice I'm going to put this in quotes, equals 6, and bigger number equals 10, and big number equals 10, bigger number equals small number plus plus big number. What do you think is going to happen? Let's check this out. 610. Weird. So it sees that these are just strings of characters, and it does not allow you to add them the way you would normally add numbers. So if something's in quotes, even if it's 6 and 10, and I hit print, it's going to add them like this, 610. It doesn't think of them as numbers, it thinks of them as strings. Luckily, if you actually do give a computer something that is a string and you need to turn it into a number, you can. So let's see, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say small number equals string small number, and big number equals string. Oh, I just made a mistake. I don't mean string. I mean integer, int. Okay? And int big number. So the int command here turns a string into a number, assuming that the string is actually a number. So, and I'm going to finally say bigger number equals small number plus big number. So let's see what happens here. This should work. Run. So it actually turned them into integers, added them together. Now, if it is not what you would consider normal number, 6, and I try to do integer to it, it's going to give me an error. So it doesn't understand what the word 6 means. It has to be something that looks like a number. So I also wonder what happens if I do this, 6.5. So a number with a decimal point, what this is going to do. So again, this gave me an error as well because it was expecting a whole number or an integer. Now I can say bigger number equals small number plus big number. Now there's also a function called string, which turns an integer into a string. So if small number equals string small number and big number equals string big number, and now I do this command here, or these two lines here, copy and paste, and copy by highlighting the whole line, Command C for copy, and Command V for paste. Let's see what happens. So the first time it printed 16 because this print used the integer version of big number and small number, and this print here used the string version of small number and big number. So what you've just learned in this program is the difference between strings and integers and how computers use them differently. But you can actually come up with a pretty good reason why you might want to be able to add strings. So if I say first name equals Snowy Snowflake, okay, that's her first name, and last name equals Maltzman, then I could say print the dog is named, comma, first name plus last name. Okay, let's see what happens. The dog is named Snowy Snowflake Maltzman with no space. See that no space in here? So I better have this. I wonder if I separate them with commas if it'll work. I wonder what will happen here. Oh yeah, I added a space in there. Or I could have done plus space plus last name. So adding three things together. And it does the same thing. The dog is named Snowy Snowflake Maltzman. Okay, so you have learned what strings are, what integers are, and the difference between them. And you've also learned a function which is going to be important. If number equals quote 6, then you know how to turn it into an integer by doing this. Okay? I'm taking the number 6, turning it into an integer, and that allows me to work with the number. So you definitely have to understand that. Let's see, we're going to call this strings to numbers. And we save that. Okay. One thing that's interesting to know is what if you can't remember this stuff? What if you just don't remember? Well, luckily, there are lots of places to get help. I'm going to show you the first place to get help. So it's called Stack Overflow. And if you go to, let's see, how to convert a string into an integer in Python, you will immediately get an answer. It's pretty great. So here's an example, 14 answers. Print integer plus 1 gets you 2. So int is the Python standard built-in function to convert a string into an integer value. So there's lots of people who are willing to give you help if you search for it. And often I use something like Stack Overflow to figure out how to do something. All right. But because we just learned.